So I thought I'd continue on with the video I did a few weeks ago, which was on pentatonic licks that emphasise this kind of trill movement, just because it's so important. But actually, I had an interesting question from someone, and that was, how do I use these? How do I take this exercise and then use it in real music? And so what I thought I'd do is try and get your help this week. So what I'll do is, if I can think of an example of someone actually using one of these exercises or using one of these licks in a piece of music, I'm going to put a link in the video below, in the comments section. And if you can do the same as well, so if you recognise any of this and if you can think of a solo that uses it, then please put a comment in, and then hopefully people can use that as a reference. They can take some of these ideas, they can see how other people use it. So it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be an exact representation of the exercise that I'm showing, but if you can use it as, like I say, like an example, then other people can use that and start to see how to use these ideas. So I'll just throw a whole series of licks out there, exercises out there, some moving, some static, and we'll see where we get to. Alright, so let's start with a real classic then. It's probably the most common exercise you'll find in this genre, and it's just descending threes. So we're working on a pentatonic, and all we do is going down in groups of three. I've done it lots in the past, shown it in other videos as well, and you can slur like I'm doing, or you can pick every note as well. It's a good picking exercise actually. And all I'm doing here, if I put my hand in the shot, I'm using that 4-note picking pattern I've talked about loads in previous videos. But this, so common, I hear it so much in solo. So for a great example is Mr. Crowley, Ozzy Osbourne. So that's one example that I'd point to. And going the other way, and ascending groups of three. And again, you can pick or you can slur, and in this case I'd point to Led Zeppelin, Good Times, Bad Times is a great example of this. Okay, so continuing on with that same theme, we can use descending 4 notes. Now there are 2 ways that people use these. Firstly, you can just move on to the next note down. And that uses the same side of the shape every time. Or you can drop 2 notes, which is what I'd recommend you doing, because we're working on this sort of trill movement, and it sounds like this. Okay, so I'm playing 4, and then starting up that same string. And just like before, you can pick this, or you can use slurs like I've just done, and similarly ascending as well. And then stay on that same string. I can't think of any examples. I'm sure there are out there, but I can't think of any. Maybe you can. Okay, so the next one in the series is probably the hardest, and that's working in groups of 5. And again, you can slur all of these, or you can pick them. Now, if you see what I'm doing, I'm going 5, and then the next note down. Great examples of these are people like Eric Johnson, Joe Bonamassa, who uses descending 5s, definitely. And of course you can turn this round. To do ascending 5s. I can't think of an example of an ascending 5 lick, so that'd be an interesting one if you can find it. Okay, so finally 6s then. And just like 4s, because we want to work on this trill type movement, what we're going to do is reset every 2 notes, which means basically hop back a set of strings. And this fits much more nicely under the hand than 5s, for example. And of course you can go the other way as well. And I'm sure I can think of an example of this, it just nothing comes to mind at the moment. So that's sixes. So that was a whole series of exercises that move across the strings. There are a whole set of licks and ideas and exercises that stay in one place as well. So I'll run through a few simple ones right now. Okay, so static exercises then. Here's a really simple one. So all a static exercise is something that just stays on the same group of notes. And you can see it's emphasising that trill movement again. Great example of this is the solo in my Sharona. I'll put a link to that below as well. And the other thing he'll do in that is he'll stretch out that top note. So there's another thing that you can do. The other thing you can do is repeat those first two notes twice, upper two notes twice. And you can either just use it to punctuate, so you sort of go. So I'm just interspersing it, or you can do it all the time. A great example of this actually is a combination of those two is Alvin Lee from one of the Woodstock songs that he did. He's playing this. Can you see that? I'll put a link to that below as well. So another really simple idea is to just start with this. Just a descending 4-note pattern. And again, it's a great little picking exercise if you want to work on your picking as well. And a good example of this is Gary Moore on Back on the Streets. I actually think he's working with the second and third string, but it's the same pattern. And just like before, you can stretch out for that upper note. And I actually saw a Richie Kotzen video on YouTube. I think he was playing along the Watchtower where he was doing this. And he changed position. But it's just this movement. And just like before, you can double the top two notes. Very common, and again, I remember seeing an Andy James video. It's something that he does a lot. He'll either intersperse it or he'll play a 6-note lick like that. So I think that's enough for the moment. There are loads of these out there, and I'm sure I could do a whole series of videos that demonstrate these kinds of exercises and licks. Like I say, I'd be really interested to see where you've heard these being used in songs and things, and if you can put examples in the comments section below, that'd be brilliant. Otherwise, we'll chat next time. Goodbye.